Welcome back to this I-24 News Evening Edition. This is One-on-One. Israel Apartheid Week is underway now in the United States and for years has been marked by the international community's series of events, often on college campuses and in public venues. Its supporters dub it an effort to, quote, raise awareness about Israel's apartheid policies towards the Palestinians and to build support for the growing boycott, divestment and sanctions campaign. Others deride the use of apartheid as ludicrous and unrealistic. To look at the highly controversial issue, joining me is Gidi Grinstein, president and founder of the Reut Institute. Good evening.
Good evening. Great to be here.
Thank you very much for coming. Before we're looking who's behind the Apartheid Week, we know that some of the people who are supporting this Apartheid Week are Jews.
Right.
And how come Jews are actually going out against themselves?
So first of all, there's this historical phenomena that Jews have gone out against the Jewish people, anti-Jewish Jews, and it's been going on for millennia. We know that the commander of the Roman legion that destroyed Jerusalem was Jewish. We know that some of the most of the harshest persecutors during the days of the Spanish acquisitions were former Jews. Some of the leaders of the Politburo in the Soviet Union were Jews, and they went after the Jewish people in the areas of the Soviet Union. So basically, the leadership, the Jewish leadership of the BDS movement is just our modern day version of those anti-Jewish Jews, Jews that cross the line and become enemies of the Jewish people. Because in essence, the BDS movement is a deeply anti-Semitic movement that denies the right of the Jewish people to self-determination. They would like to see Israel eliminated and disappear. And it's really unfortunate to see Jews at the leadership of that movement, but actually it's part of a historical pattern that we've seen for many centuries.
Who's actually financing these events?
This is actually, if it wasn't about us and if it wasn't about our enemies and adversaries, it was a quite remarkable movement, what we're looking at, the BDS movement, and specifically the Apartheid Week. So first of all, we need to say a few words about the BDS movement. The BDS movement is created by the so-called Red-Green Alliance, an alliance of people originally from the far left and very radical Islamist pan-Arab people that came together around one agenda, which is to see the state of Israel disappear. They were frustrated by the inability to destroy Israel physically in 1948, 1967, 1973. Then there was the period of terror that tried to bring Israel down in the 70s and 80s. That failed as well. So then they were sort of inspired by the ability to bring about a political and economic collapse of countries. They saw the Soviet Union, they saw white South Africa, and they thought that they could bring about a similar process with regard to Israel. So what we're seeing here is a deliberate political and economic assault on the model of the State of Israel. So this is the ideology of the movement. And
Can you say that they are anarchists?
They're actually not anarchists. They're super sophisticated people that deploy networks, and what is so sophisticated about them is their ability to mask their true intentions behind this veil of human rights and international law that then allows them to build alliances with groups and people that are not about the elimination of the State of Israel. These people out there that are doing a lot of the work on the ground are actually about Israel's policies. So they're against the occupation in the West Bank, they're against Israel's policies in Gaza, and so on. So basically it's an alliance, a very loose alliance between those that want to see Israel disappear and those that are critical of Israeli policies.
You know, I'm trying to think about it, because it's very hard to actually fight against it, because when you have a Jewish person who's sitting and actually talking against Israel, how do you react to this from Israel? How do you actually protect yourself?
So basically, actually, this was the essence of the work that my team and I did at the Reut Institute, because the major diagnosis that we did back in 2008, 9, and 10 was that we are being attacked by a network. And one of the things we know is that it takes a network to fight a network, and there are certain ways that you need to do in order to be effective in fighting a network. First and foremost, you have to identify the so-called hubs, which are the centers. These are the units that have an extraordinary number of links with other elements of the network. And second are the catalysts. The catalysts are the people that are most loyal to the cause. They are the ones that wake up in the morning and make things happen. So the real strategy is to try to drive a wedge between the true delegitimizers and those that are just critical of Israeli policies. So when you drive this wedge, what you do is you need to expose the delegitimizers for what they really are. they pretend to be about human rights, but are actually about the elimination of Israel. So there are a lot of things that you can do in order to expose them, and in some cases this was done very successfully. And then with regard to those that are basically critical of Israeli policies, the way to deal with them is what we call substantive engagement. So the willingness to engage with them substantively about the issues. There are a number of other things that we need to do. First of all is rebranding Israel away from the conflict, which is a major project of the Israeli Ministry of Foreign Affairs. The leader of that is Consul General Ido Aharoni, who's based in New York, who's a really formidable civil servant and has done amazing work. We also, if the delegitimization of Israel creates a legitimacy deficit, takes away our legitimacy, we need to create a legitimacy surplus in other places, primarily by making significant contributions to humanity in areas of fighting poverty, medical devices, and so on. And there is another key element in this strategy is the ability to continuously project credible and continuous commitment to ending the control over the Palestinian population and to integration and equality of Arabs. If you do these 5 things, they will be kept at bay and they will be just a background noise.
You know, it seems that the thing that is actually making this apartheid week live is the Palestinian-Israeli, of course, Palestinian conflict. And it seems that as long as Israel is not reaching to an agreement or to a certain framework with the Palestinians, it seems that this is the thing that is making these weeks and these BDS movement actually live every single year. And you mentioned the foreign policy of Israel and the foreign ministry of Israel. It seems that for the last 4 years, somebody fell asleep in the foreign ministry.
So actually the sleeping period was before 2006. The coming into life of the BDS movement took place in the 2006 Second Lebanon War, when it was Hezbollah that initiated the war, Hezbollah that systematically targets civilian populations, and at the same time in Europe, hundreds of thousands of people took to the streets not in support of Israel, which was being attacked, but in support of Hezbollah, which was the aggressor. So that was the moment when people like us woke up and said, wait a minute, what's going on here? Hundreds of thousands of people don't take to the street, without some design, without some very, very serious and heavy groundwork that has been done before. And that was the moment of awakening. And between 2006 and 2008 and 2009, when we walked around the corridors of the Ministry of Defense, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, National Security Council, and we said to the senior people in government, there is a strategic threat on Israel, potentially existential, that comes from politics and not from military, and it comes from non-governmental organizations and not from governments. People they could not appreciate the severity of the threat. 2009, 2010, the Marmara event was the wake-up moment. So it took Israel about 4 years to actually appreciate what's happening and then to begin to respond. And what is really important here is not getting an agreement with the Palestinians, because getting an agreement, getting to a yes, requires the other side. What is really important is the credible commitment to ending the control over the Palestinian population. This is key. And as long as we are credibly committed to that, and that's the perception around the world, the delegitimizers will be kept at bay.
I want to ask you about maybe a certain way that individuals are trying to fight that. I had the chance to speak with a few students from Oxford University, and it seems that they are trying to fight this apartheid week by showing that Israel may has some problems. Israel can be considered maybe as a racist country. Israel has a lot of problems with the Palestinians and the way that it's acting in the Palestinian Authority. But it's not apartheid. Let's show you the real deal.
Right.
We are able to speak about ourselves and actually have a look inside the society, but we're not actually living in an apartheid situation.
Right. So basically, what we know, as I said, it takes a network to fight a network, and therefore, every success in fighting the BDS, in fighting the apartheid, every single success was local. Nothing happened because Jerusalem intervened. It's always the local Jewish community in the Bay Area succeeding in Berkeley. It's the local Jewish community in Orange County succeeding in UC Irvine. It's about the local Jewish community in London being effective in responding to the BDS movement in London. So every success is local. What the State of Israel can do is be a resource, provide the materials, provide the people. Now, in terms of the So those people that are doing the work on the ground are critically important. The students that are doing the work, organizations like Stand With Us and APAC and other groups and Hillel on the university campuses in America, they're all critical for the success. But at the same time, we need to understand what is achievable and what is not.
Like, you know, the education of self-criticism, that before you're pointing at the other, you're just looking inside, and then you're saying, okay, I know that I have a problem, but...
Exactly. So one element is we need to understand nothing we say or do can convince the delegitimizer that we're okay, because they're not about anything that Israel does. They're about Israel's existence. So they will always find the next issue. The real frontier is those that are critical of Israeli policies, and they're useful idiots for the BDS movement. So with them, we know that the rule is substantive engagement. And substantive engagement means it's not black or white, it's gray. I have my issues, but here are my dilemmas. For example, a lot of it, the most effective tactics is actually sharing the dilemma. What would you do if you've been fired upon from Gaza, from another country? What would be your response? How would you separate a terrorist from a civilian in a very close setting, like in a building?
Show cooperation between, actually, that it's happening on the ground between Palestinians and Israelis.
Exactly, but the general principle is substantive engagement. Bring people into your issues, make them appreciate the complexity of the situation. It's not black or white. It's not that we are only good and the other side is only bad. There are also good people on the other side. It's messy environment. It's not. There are no linear relationships between cause and effect. So the moment you're able to engage in that relationship, the people who have been mobilized by the BDS movement are much more hesitant participants in the efforts to delegitimize Israel. But then there's all the other elements that are supportive. If there is a very serious, credible effort to rebrand Israel away from the conflict. Israel used to be associated, the brand of Israel used to be associated with the conflict. Today, all over the world, the brand of Israel is the startup nation, creativity, innovation. So it's much more difficult to make these kind of allegations stick to Israel when your brand is the startup nation. What we're saying is the 21st century brand of Israel, next decade, needs to be about contribution to humanity, to the poorest people around the world, the edge of the desert. Hundreds of millions of people live on the edge of the desert, and Israel can bring them value. Teach many countries how to operate on the edge of the desert. And by the way, all Arabs, 90-something% of the Arabs in the world live on the edge of the desert. No country has done more on the edge of the desert than we have done. So
how much is the current situation of the Arab countries and in the Middle East is actually helping the, let's say, advocacy of Israel?
So I think it creates very significant opportunities for us, because it used to be there were 80 million Egyptians, and Israel had relationship. We had a peace treaty with Egypt, but we had a relationship perhaps with 800 Egyptians, maybe 80 Egyptians of the 80 million, right? Now the system is open. So we have the opportunity to begin to create significant relationships with civil society around the Arab world. Not only that, a lot of these people no longer accept the argument that the troubles of the Arab world are because of Israel. So after decades and decades, when they were fed that the reason for the incompetence of their government, for the inefficiency of their economies, for the non-participation of women, for the lack of is Israel, after all these decades that they were fed with this scapegoating, they are now very resistant, even hostile to this kind of argument. And it creates a space that allows us to work together. And I think there is a great opportunity for Israel to break or to crack this wall of hostility in the Arab world over the next few years. And I hope it will happen.
If you need to paint, let's say, or to right now do a short video about Israel, what would be in it?
On the one hand, this is it's a tough question, but on the one hand, I would really acknowledge the complexity of the relationship with the Palestinians. It's not that an argument that begins with they're bad and we are good simply doesn't fly. It's a complicated environment, messy environment, a lot of gray, not just black and white. So that's one thing that I would do. But the most of my resources would be invested in the two other areas. Rebranding Israel away from the conflict, which the government is doing, and very successfully, together with many other not-for-profit groups and civil society groups like Kinetis and so on, Startup Nation Institute and so on. And then the other thing is legitimacy surplus. our contribution to humanity, not just at the top of the pyramid, we know with high tech and technology that rich people can buy in wealthy countries, but our contribution at the bottom of the pyramid in countries like Africa, in the poorest countries of the world, the poorest people of the world. We are the per capita highest contributors to humanity by far, and that's something that needs to be brought out there.
Gidi, Grinstein, I have to say that maybe Israel needs to seize the opportunity actually that it's in right now and not use the Palestinian way, not miss an opportunity that it's coming. Gidi, Grinstein, thank you very much for this interview that you gave us, and thank you, our viewers, for being with us tonight. Tomorrow we will be here at the same time, same place from the Jaffa Port, Israel. Have a great night.